I'm Nakita Price.
Okay. So could you tell us what organization you're with?
Yes, I'm with Picture the Homeless.
Okay. And so today we're at New York City Hall, and why are you all here today?
Picture the Homeless is in a coalition, Communities United for Police Reform. We're a social justice homeless organization, and we're pushing for the rights of homeless New Yorkers to be acknowledged as not being the stereotypical belief that we're all shiftless and drug users and don't want to do anything. And Picture the Homeless has been almost 18 years pushing the narrative that we are human beings, and we're part of a coalition that has legislation before the city council, which would make it law that when homeless people and people of color encounter the police, like in other cities, Oakland, San Francisco, and elsewhere, you know who that officer is that is violating your civil and human rights. That is the identification bill. And the consent to search bill would be legislation whereby if it goes past a normal stop and an officer wants to search your bag, he has to get your permission. And this permission would be in the form of an exchanging of documentation. On the identification bill, when he asks you for your identification, he gives you a document indicating what his identification is: name, rank, precinct, command. And this is what we should have when you hear law enforcement across the country saying they want to be more transparent.
That's what's up. Thank you.
Simple.
Beautiful. Any other questions you guys have?
NYT has a history of, profiling and abusing houses, people with disabilities. So what do you think that this?
He's asking.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
So, with that history, what do you think that this new position would do?
Okay. I think law enforcement does have a job to do. And we are not of the mind that all law enforcement agents are breaking the law. We know that a lot of them are. We also know that there is a disconnect in a lot of communities, especially communities of color, where law enforcement comes in and they're not aware of the cultural dynamics of the areas in which they're policing. And this becomes a problem. And there is a systemic disconnect with certain communities. Law enforcement goes into some neighborhoods, everything is fine. Then they come into our neighborhoods and everything is not fine. And then the narrative becomes we have to go in there to bring law and order. One of the things that I think when you hear the city say, well, crime is down, crime is down, crime is down. If crime is down, then why are people of color still being targeted by law enforcement? So I think it's important that not only in New York, where you have the largest police force in the country, but in other places across the country, that we set a precedent, a real precedent whereby there's transparency. If you have no fear in giving me your, asking me for my identification, then you should have no fear in giving me your identification. If you have no fear in asking me to search my personal property, then give my permission. Make sure that it's done legally and justly. Because what we're finding here in New York, in too many cases where they're saying there's crime here, crime there, crime here, and crime there, the comp stats, which is the report that the police hand out, indicating what the crimes are that are being committed, don't warrant the over-policing that we're seeing in our communities. And that's what we need to put a stop to. If the stats don't prove that in certain communities that we're more susceptible to committing all these crimes, then stop over-policing us.
That's what's up.
So where does Stockton Fish lie these days?
So stop and frisk has been ruled upon by a judge, and since the ruling of it being unconstitutional, there have been a lot of stop guards put in place. We now have a New York City NYPD Inspector General in place now to oversee a lot of policies and procedures that the NYPD is using. We have also the Civilian Complaint Review Board, which has been revamped to look into matters of encounters with law enforcement and communities. We also, as an organization, as part of a coalition, was very instrumental in getting the Inspector General appointed for statewide for cases of individuals being killed while in the custody of law enforcement. And that means killed whether you're in a van, whether you're handcuffed in a cell, whether you're being choked out in the street. So when the district attorneys bring grand juries together and they refuse to convict law enforcement agents, then the Inspector General is supposed to step in and do an investigation. And that's part of the work that Picture the Homeless and Communities United for Police Reform as a coalition has done for the city of New York.
So, Poor Magazine, Prensa Pobre, other poor people, the clients, the consumers, the displaced, and the homeless were with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh.